Commissioner Gordon and his team were assigned to investigate a murder committed in an old, disused factory outside the city. When Gordon and his team arrived and saw the scene, they nearly vomited because the body of the deceased was almost completely dismembered, and there seemed to be very little left. Gordon immediately instructed his team to check any security cameras in the area. While he was doing this, a police officer approached Gordon and told him that the person who made the report was ready to speak. Gordon quickly left to meet with that person. Of course, Batman was not idle while all this was happening. He watched the police from afar, recording the entire scene with the high-tech cameras he used. He also kept his eyes on Commissioner Gordon from a distance, observing his conversation with the person who had reported the incident. Commissioner Gordon's conversation with the witness soon ended. The witness was a young man in his 20s who had been walking in the area, supposedly looking for a little adventure. He told Gordon that while he was walking, something fell from the sky and hit the ground, followed by a terrifying scream. He said he heard it clearly and immediately called the police. Gordon listened to the young man carefully, but the story seemed a bit absurd to him. This was one of the areas outside the city where wild animals often roamed. Sometimes even bears and wild boars searching for food. The victim's body had been torn apart exactly the way wild animals would do it. Gordon calmed the young man down and gave him a card, telling him to call if he remembered anything or wanted to share more. Just as Gordon was about to return to his police car, he saw a shadow moving among the trees nearby and headed toward it. When he got close, he realized the truth. Batman was waiting for him there, ready to talk about the murder. Gordon quickly told him what he had seen at the scene and relayed in detail what the young man had told him. Finally, he commented that he was considering the possibility that the killing had been done by a wild animal, and that it was the most likely explanation. Batman agreed, but said he wanted to speak with the young man who made the report. Gordon gave him the young man's address. And just as quietly as he had arrived, Batman disappeared from the scene. After Batman left the scene, he returned to the Batcave and immediately began running tests on the evidence he had collected. He wanted to find out what had killed the victim. He analyzed the blood sample taken from the victim. The victim was a man in his 30s with no criminal record, but the question remained, what had killed him? Batman examined the crime scene photos, focusing on the tooth and claw marks on the victim's body. He fed the photos into his special artificial intelligence system and instructed it to compare them with wild animal attacks recorded around the world. While the AI was analyzing the data, Batman left the Batcave and headed out into the night to speak with the young man who had witnessed the incident and called the police. He tracked the young man from the pizza restaurant where he worked in the city center all the way to his home. Just as the young man unlocked his apartment door and stepped inside, Batman was already waiting for him. When the young man reached for the light switch, he froze. Batman was standing in the dark. Batman told him to calm down, sit on the couch, and explain clearly what he had seen and heard. The young man did exactly as he was told. After listening, Batman asked him a series of questions. One of them was, what did this object or animal look like? The young man replied that it looked more like a creature than an animal. When Batman asked why he hadn't told the police this information, the young man admitted he was afraid the police wouldn't believe him and would think he was crazy. Batman then instructed him to describe the creature in as much detail as possible, and even draw it on paper if he could. The young man did as he was asked and tried to sketch exactly what he had seen. Batman took the drawing, then quietly left the apartment without another word. While Batman continued investigating the case, the murders continued the following day. This time, the victim was an elderly, defenseless woman. Commissioner Gordon and the police were stunned by what they saw. The murder was almost identical to the victim they examined the day before. The elderly woman's body bore sharp claw and tooth marks. The only difference was that the two victims had been found in almost opposite parts of the city. Commissioner Gordon had begun to take these murders much more seriously. During his entire time on the force, he had never seen such similar, back-to-back killings that resembled wild animal attacks. In this case, however, the police were fortunate enough to obtain security camera footage. When Gordon and the other officers examined the footage, they couldn't fully understand what had happened, but they determined that something vaguely resembling a human had torn the woman apart. The images were horrific. Gordon secretly made a copy of the footage, planning to meet with Batman again that evening. Meanwhile, Batman was analyzing the results from his computer in the Batcave. Alfred entered the room and placed that morning's newspapers on the table before quietly leaving. Batman didn't have time to read them, but a headline on one of the front pages caught his attention. He picked it up and began to read. The report described the murder of an elderly woman, carried out in almost the exact same way as the previous day's killing. At that moment, a video was sent to Batman from a private line. He set the newspaper aside and opened the file. The video contained the crime scene footage of the dead woman mentioned in the article. Batman enhanced the blurry image as much as possible. As he focused on the figure attacking the victim, he suddenly remembered the drawing the young witness had made the night before. The creature in the recording and the sketch looked disturbingly similar. Then another message came from the same private line. Commissioner Gordon wanted to speak with Batman. That night, Gordon waited for Batman at their usual meeting place, tense and filled with an inexplicable dread. Something deep inside him whispered that this was going to be far worse than he had imagined. His anxious wait didn't last long. Batman arrived exactly on time. Gordon turned to him immediately. "This is much more serious than I thought, Batman." Batman nodded, agreeing with the weight in Gordon's voice. He explained the results from his computer analysis. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't from this world. The images didn't match any predator known to Earth. Gordon asked what they needed to do next. Panic was already beginning to rise across Gotham. His superiors were putting enormous pressure on him to find the killer. Batman thought for a moment, about to answer, when a sudden noise came from behind them. Gordon instantly reached for his gun. Batman turned toward the sound with measured caution. "Are you expecting someone?" Batman asked softly. "No," Gordon replied. A humanoid creature stepped out from the shadows. Batman and Gordon recognized it instantly. It was the creature from the footage. Gordon pointed his gun at it, shouting for it to raise its hands and step forward. The creature smiled mockingly, then, almost playfully, began to obey. Batman's eyes stayed locked on it. Something was very wrong with the way it moved. Too calm. Too confident. The creature took a few slow steps, then suddenly flicked its arm. In an instant, small bone-like knives shot through the air. Batman shoved Gordon aside, saving him by a split second. The creature smiled again. Batman, losing patience, charged forward and threw several punches, each one powerful enough to shatter bone, but they barely affected the creature. As Batman prepared to strike harder, the creature swung its arm in a blur, slashing at him. Batman grabbed the creature's wrist on reflex, but the creature hurled him aside with inhuman strength. Batman crashed headfirst against the concrete. Gordon rushed to him, panic rising. The creature advanced. Gordon fired several rounds, but the bullets seemed to do nothing. The creature didn't even flinch. Batman groaned, regaining his senses, and fired multiple stun rounds from his taser. The creature twitched, annoyed rather than harmed, and lunged at Batman. Batman sidestepped just in time. This time, Batman approached more cautiously and hurled a thick web net meant to restrain metahumans. The creature struggled for only a second before slicing through it effortlessly, with the axe strapped to its back. Batman froze. He hadn't expected that. Gordon called for backup, but the nearest patrol was at least 5 minutes away. They had to hold out alone. Batman rushed the creature again, landing brutal, heavy blows, but the creature tossed him aside as if he weighed nothing, its attention now fixed on Gordon. Gordon fired desperately, but the creature, now clearly irritated, charged straight toward him. Batman threw several batarangs, but the creature deflected each one with its axe in a blur of motion. Running out of options, Batman threw several flash grenades. The bursts of light disoriented the creature for a moment. Batman hit it again with the taser, trying to buy time. From below, the distant sound of police sirens grew louder. Help was on the way. But then something happened that neither of them expected. The creature unfurled its enormous bat-like wings, massive, leathery, impossible, and in a single swoop, it grabbed Commissioner Gordon by the arms. Gordon screamed as the creature lifted him effortlessly into the air. "Gordon, Gordon, Gordon," Batman shouted, leaping forward, but the creature shot into the night sky too fast to catch. In seconds, they were gone. The police car screeched to a stop below, lights flashing through the alley. Batman stood there, staring up at the empty sky, completely helpless. For the first time in a long while, he felt fear, not for himself, but for Gordon.